I first of all want to thank People Before Profit, Solidarity and Dr Murphy as well for bringing forward this motion. I think it's a very important motion and one that many of us have been campaigning on Cathaoirleach for a number of months now. I've had numerous engagements with the Irish Nurses and Midwives organisation, and I have to say I've received thousands of emails from nurses and midwives on a range of issues over the last number of months, but particularly on this issue, and solidarity, by the way, by senior nurses and midwives with their colleagues who are student nurses and midwives, and an overall support for the call that has been made in this motion and in the IMO's campaign as well, where they have been campaigning on this for some time. I have to say that the Minister's speech and the government's position on this rings very hollow. It's again the same old rhetoric from the government that they will say all the right things, they'll clap the frontline workers on the back, they'll tell them that they are heroes, they will tell them that they are essential frontline workers, they will tell them that they are doing a great job, but when it comes to action, I'm afraid the government is hiding behind their fine words. The reality is that student nurses and midwives are doing an incredible job, have been doing an incredible job, and long before COVID came, issues in relation to payment and increased supports for student nurses has been an issue. But it has become more of an issue now because of the huge work that those on the front line have done and the exceptional work that they have done during this COVID crisis. And student nurses and midwives, in my view, like all of those on the front line, have been the glue that kept our health service together, that kept people safe, and without them, I don't believe that hospitals, hospital managers, hospital consultants and specialists would have been able to do their job had they not been supported by those student nurses and midwives. And their demands are very, very simple, Minister. You know what they are. They have been calling for these for some time. The Irish Nurses and Midwives organisation's call, I think, is very, very reasonable. They say that we should pay all final year interns the same rate as healthcare assistants. I believe that should be done. I don't believe there should be any delay. The government's amendment again talks about more process, more talks. We'll have to examine and all of the language that the government uses when it doesn't want to do something. The reality is this can be done, and it can be done very quickly. In fact, it was done earlier this year, and yet then that payment was removed for fourth-year students. So that should be reinstated immediately, and those fourth-year students should be on the same rate as healthcare assistants. The IMO are also calling for increased and expanded clinical placement allowance for all other students. Again, the government motion or amendment to the motion says that we will examine this, we will look at it, we will discuss, and so on, but it doesn't give any commitment. And that's what I mean, Minister, when I say that your statement and the contribution that you made here today rings hollow, because this can be done very, very quickly. The only people that are stopping the government doing this are the government themselves. So if we really believe that this is an issue that should be dealt with, if we really believe that first, second and third year students should have increased and expanded clinical placement allowances, then the government can do it, and they should do it very, very quickly. The IMO are also calling for a provision of full health and safety protection to all students, including payment if they have to go on COVID-related leave. And that isn't the case at the moment, Minister, which I find is absolutely extraordinary. And you know, we all know the efforts that have been made by these workers over the last number of months. And I can tell you, Minister, that many of them have passed burnout. The work that they have done, the overtime that they have done, and I'm talking about all nurses and midwives, including student nurses and midwives, the huge trauma that they have been through, dealing with a very, very difficult situation, I believe has to be acknowledged and has to be commended. But not just with fine words. It has to be backed up by action. It has to be backed up by substance. It has to be backed up by firm policy commitments by government and by this state to say we recognise the work that you do. So again, you know what the issues are, Minister, and you know what's been asked of your government. Fourth-year interns should be paid the equivalent of a healthcare assistance rate, and first, second and third years, greater allowances for those as well, not the pittance that they're paid at the moment, which I believe is a disgrace. So we need more action from the government, and I'll pass over to my colleagues.